take this time to come back inwardly, where everything begins for us. We don't see the world the way it is, we see the world the way we are. If you like, you can close your eyes. Feel your weight in the seat and notice that you're in a body that's quite useful. You have fingers and toes. You have eyes and ears, tongue, belly. You can regenerate. Everything is there complete. But most important, you have cognition. You can create. You can be aware. You can adjust your attitude at any time. You can apply a new practice. You can start over any minute and go in a new direction. You have free will. Human life is characterized by freedom. And today we'll talk about how to create more freedom in your life. Loosening the constraints that hold us to habit patterns by becoming more aware of time and how to utilize it. And ways of thinking that we can be more efficient in everything we do. Now just breathe and appreciate that you have this opportunity to be not engaged in anything except for just appreciating that you're alive. And don't worry about your life situation. It goes on. Whether we're here or not, the world moves. Feel your fingers and toes. And open your eyes. Appreciate the raga. Without music and rhythm, life makes no sense. Without friendship, gratitude, life is simply a mechanical bore. And let's have a conversation now. Thanks, everyone. Let's take a second to switch back my audio to noise removal. And we're back. Great. I hope everyone's having a really nice morning or had a nice morning. We hit the noon part and have a few points I'd like to make today that are hopefully going to be something we can all take away. JM, let's go right to it and see what we have in our little bag of tricks. Yeah, sort of an admonition. Get real now. And we're calling this the inner discipline of a meaningful life. Just indicative of the fact that we have an inner life. Shubhanga, good to see you.
Prabhuji, good to
Your
see
day
you.
was yesterday.
Sorry?
Yesterday was Nrsimha Chaturdasi. We had a big celebration. But
I see. Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, happy to hear that. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt your flow of this presentation, but something you said in in the beginning all this while caught my attention, and I have a question on that. So if you don't mind me interrupting you.
Not at all. This is a free room, and I encourage discussion and interchange, and I'm happy to see you and hear you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So you mentioned something wonderful about let us be filled with gratitude for the fact that we are alive and let us forget our life situations for a moment. I think I deeply kind of understand the meaning that you wish to convey in this, but I have a few questions about the interplay of desire and how we would like certain things to play out in our life situations and the detachment. So there seems to be some conflict between the two because not all desires are met. I have been unable to live without desires, but I've also been conflicted to kind of impose those desires on my life situations, but also completely withdraw. So I don't know how to actually withdraw from these life situations and also manage these desires. Should I not have
Mm.
desires, or what should I do?
That sounds like Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. The similar questions he's asking. Let's see what the word desire means, firstly. A strong feeling of wanting to have something or wishing for something to happen. And see, it's a verb coming from desiderate from Old French. We can't stop desire or feeling. Now I'm speaking according to the authority of Bhagavad Gita because you have to accept some axiomatic text in order to move forward. So I base it on Bhagavad Gita, a widely accepted spiritual text. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions that the living condition, that is us, we who are animating the body right now, have desire. It's the nature of consciousness itself to be creative, to desire, and to constantly be moving. We're alive and we never die. What dies is, or what cycles constantly, is the material nature around us. That includes our own bodies because they're made of material nature, whereas we who animate the body are not made of material nature. That's why we feel incongruous with the body itself. Therefore, stopping desire is not possible. That's directly stated in Gita. However, realigning our desire is what is called Buddhi Yoga. We use our intelligence to understand what to desire. Desire comes through a filter. Again, Bhagavad Gita. There are three modalities that we see the world, a lens, three lenses we see the world through. One is sattva, clarity. One is rajas, the next one down, which means attainment of comfort and attaining status. This is rajas. And then tamas, which means the inability to do any of it. We're oppressed, dark. So when we realign ourselves, first of all, through purification, one of the main points of the Bhagavad Gita is to cultivate the higher modes of nature, especially sattva. From sattva, it's quite natural for us to align our desires with our self-interest. Why? Because from sattva, we can see who we are. When we are mistakenly aligned with ourselves as this body, and we desire for the body and everything connected with it, then again and again we're frustrated because those things in relationship with the body have a beginning and an end. And of course, for regular survival, we take those things and we have to. But for our ultimate interest in life, we should be oriented towards the Atma, which means the real self, the self that survives beyond this particular identity that we have right now. One person's thinking I'm a cat, another person's thinking I'm a squirrel, another person's thinking I'm an American, and another person thinks I'm Italian. But none of these is true because those are only temporary designations. And when the squirrel desires for squirrel stuff, that's not going to last. And it'll be frustrating. When humans desire for things specifically just for humanness, that's also not going to last. But when we elevate our desire through purification of the mind, and that means coming to sattva, clarity, then our desires can be aligned with our highest interest, which is yoga. Yoga means connection of our desires with the desires of the Paramatma, or the highest self, the origin of our self. So when we're connected to our source, then our desires are fruitful. And this is the message of Bhagavad Gita, not to stop desire, not even to renounce the world. And when I mentioned being aware of the difference between ourself and our life situation, I just mean that we should observe that the world situation, our situation within it, is something that we have to contend with, but we don't have to become emotionally involved with it. That's also what Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita. Do your work, but don't be attached to the result because you have a higher purpose for your life. And if I were to put it in a simple way, it would be that the world's didactic. We're meant to, well, I hate to use a cliche, but I'm going to use it anyway, become the highest version of ourselves. And all the situations that we're in our lives are meant to teach us something, not that we acquire something, because you can't keep it. I was at a friend's house the other day and somebody complimented him on his car parked in his driveway. And he said, well, it's not mine. It's just on lease. And then when that person left, we were talking about how, well, everything's on lease. We don't have a thing here. So if I start thinking that's my car and I get to keep it, I'm going to be out of alignment. I'll be disappointed. But like my friend I was talking to, Pete, he said, yeah, everything's on lease. So why do I become so invested in my life situation? So these are the nuances of the Bhagavad Gita. And your question is so apt because it's really the question that Arjuna asks to Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. And how do you work in this world and be renounced at the same time? That's chapter 5. It's how to integrate knowledge and renunciation and action all in one package. And the example Krishna gives in that chapter, which you've probably heard me say before, is of a lotus. Gives this analogy that a lotus flower is born out of mud, hence its name, Padmaja, means mud-born. It's born out of mud at the bottom of the pond and it grows up in the water. It alights on the top of the pond, but it's impervious to water. It has a special quality that makes it impervious. Water cannot stick to it. So in a similar way, Krishna says, when we adjust our motive for why we're doing things, that is, realign our desires, then the world doesn't stick to us either. And our life situation doesn't stick to us. And in fact, we become more adept at our interactions with people in the world and our situations when we have a modicum of detachment from them. It's when we become overly attached and emotional about everything that happens to us that we flub. And therefore, this is a beneficial perspective to have. Okay?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you for
Thank you
the
very much.
detailed answer.
Thanks for the great question. Okay, let's go into the first slide, JM. And welcome everybody who I haven't welcomed yet, who just joined a few minutes ago. Great to have you. This is a conversation about get real now. Your life moves in the direction of your motive. We'll talk about motive in a while. Keep going. So, just thinking about the shortness of life. Yeah, life is short. And this is building an awareness that can help us. We're always on the edge. What do I mean by that? I'll quote a 16th century Bengali poet. He said, Kamala Dala Jala Jivana Talamala. That's Bengali. And he said in his poem that I am just like a drop of water on the tip of a lotus flower. I already mentioned how water runs off the lotus. It can drop at any minute. So we're on the edge. We don't know when we'll drop off, but it could be at any second. And thirdly, we try to preserve the unpreservable. That's exhausting work. Trying to preserve the unpreservable. And I'm pretending that I have all the time in the world. That causes immense stress. Beneath the surface, I'm constantly worried about going off the edge, falling off. The little lotus leaf holding that tiny little drop of water, and any minute it can blink, it comes off. But still, I'm trying to hold on. This is called also in the famous book written thousands of years ago by Patanjali Muni. He said, of all the sufferings we have in our life, the most intense is called abhinibheshita. It comes from, that's a Sanskrit word. Abhi means something forceful. Abhi, abhinibheshita. It has the word um, vesh, which means, it comes from the root word vish, which means to enter something. It's like the word Vishnu. It means the person who's entered everything. So we enter into our life situation and we become fully invested in it. Like, this is me. Everything about me, my passport, my money, my relatives, my identity and relationships, it's all me. That's going to change. It's not preservable. We can't hold on to that. And so uh, when we're living like that, trying to preserve the unpreservable, we feel suffering. It's a klesha. Abhinibheshita means be fully invested in something that's temporary. So that's a mistake. So keeping in mind that life is very short, we can use that to our advantage, not ignore it and suffer because we're ignoring it. If we fully embrace it and understand how short life is, that we can take advantage. And that's what's the next slide or the subsequent slides. So talking about our core restraints. Okay, so you see in red the law of forced efficiency. That means that we can't do everything. That's a good thing to face because if you have a to-do list, does anybody here have one? You might notice that you can't complete it. It keeps growing. And when we leave this world, there are going to be a lot of things left behind. You know, all that stuff you're trying to get rid of somewhere that you have stored. And actually, I just heard the other day on NPR, there's a epidemic of storage addiction. Some people have three, four, five, some people have six, seven, eight storage lockers. They're a scourge on the earth, actually. People are complaining in various communities because they're ugly buildings and they just sit there. They're cash cows because people get addicted to storing everything and they put it all in these extra storage lockers and they forget about them. Some people, when they pass, people have to take months and months to go through all their stuff. And so all that stuff He's just sitting there. Can you go back to the slide, please? I, I'm, yeah, so my point was I was going down a rabbit hole. You can't do everything. You can't deal with everything. All the stuff you have in your house, you can't look at it all. You can't read all the books you have. You can't finish your to-do list. So that means you have to be selective. That's the law of forced efficiency. You're forced to be selective. So you can always do the most important thing. That's the great news about forced efficiency. You can bring your mind to this point of saying, there's too many things to do. Don't try to do them all, but try to find out what's the most important thing to do. Then the scarcity of time isn't a problem. It's a filter. It's a motivator. It moves us forward. So we have to use that. Okay, now let's try the next slide. Focus. I like to say focus is nectar. If you're a writer, the most happy time in your life is when you're fully absorbed in writing and there's nobody around to bug you and you've gotten out of the flow of your life of all the things you have to do and you're just in the creative space. That's the happiest time. And when you're doing your meditation, when you're able to come out of the mind and find flow in your meditation and you're just fully aware that you're non-material, you're you're blissful, you're happy. That's us. We're always happy. It's just when we get caught in the maelstrom, which means a storm of the material world, that we get carried away with our life situation and we think, oh, this is torturous. So distraction is torture, but focus is nectar. So clarity, which actually comes from the word, it means light, to bring light to our situation. Clarity is choosing what not to do. We should have an idea of what to exclude. Don't try to grab everything. This old saying, stay in your own lane. I love that one. Stay in your lane. Find your lane, stay in it, and be there for the long term because now you know what to do. So clarity begins the moment you stop chasing everything. And if you try to chase everything, there's an old saying, if you try to chase two rabbits, you'll catch neither of them. Just the image makes me smile, trying to catch a rabbit. Two rabbits. We'll try one more and then I'm going to go for some conversation. So when we get focused, execution. Oh, go back. I want to say something about force efficiency. You can go back one more. So when I was working on this, I made a slight error when I was writing, and I wrote the law of force deficiency, and I didn't see it until I printed out the page and I was editing it. And I thought, okay, I'll take it. Because let's look at it from another way. You have force deficiency. That means when we use our intelligence to prioritize and do the things that are most important first, then we feel focused and happy. There's the law of force deficiency, which means that the material nature, the way the world works is if we don't choose, it's going to choose for us. We'll be forced to do things by the law of nature. And if we don't like it, well, that's because of our non-application of the efficient principle of deciding what to do. Force deficiency versus force deficiency. So we can either take voluntary discipline, or if we neglect to do the right things, neglect our duty, then it leads to suffering. This is a helpful equation because one way to be motivated, and that's what we're talking about, our motivation. How do we get the motivation to do the right things? Neglect of duty, neglect of doing the most important thing leads to a kind of suffering. And it's called force deficiency. We're forced to be deficient in the way we live our lives. Okay, let's go back to where we were. Execution. Action without planning leads to failure. So we should reason through what we're doing, why we're doing it, and then have the conviction after we think clearly that we move decisively. Actually, there's a lot of slides, so I'm going to do one more. And here's our deeper question. Motivation requires motive. Comes from a root word which means to move. I was looking at the etymology of the word motive, and there's another word, motif. Have you heard that word? Of course, a motif. That means a theme that runs through something. For instance, if you're looking at a piece of art, some creation, if you're in London, for instance, Christopher Wren, he's the person, the architect who helped build London back after the Great Fire burned it down, kind of like San Francisco. Christopher Wren. If you want to see his legacy, just look around you because he designed all the buildings, including St. Paul's Cathedral. And so the motif that we see in the world, it also indicates that there's a motivation behind what we see in our life, the motif of our life, the thread, the common thread that runs through everything that's in our life is an emanation of something that's within us. It's our motivation. And so getting clarity on our motivation, why are we doing things? And this question, why, as I've written here, be driven by why, not just what and how. Why is a metaphysical question. Why you're doing something goes back to your desire, your motive, your purpose for living in the first place, or why you're even trying for whatever you're trying for. That is metaphysical. That has to do with what's beyond the mechanics of the material world. It's an investigation of the purpose of life. And so this is not a unique idea. You've heard it from other people before, but it's important to come back to again and again. Your why is the engine of your life, or make why the engine of your life. Because if you start everything off with asking that question, why am I doing this? It can give clarity. And I wrote about it in this book, The Four Questions. I'm just remembering what I wrote because I'm making the audiobook right now, going into this studio and having to read my own book, which in one way is clarifying, in another way it's torturous. But we talk about in the book how important it is to be clear on why we're doing things. And there's a Sanskrit word, niyamagraha, which means two things. When it's pronounced niyamagraha or niyamagraha, that's a Sanskrit device where it's a long A or short A. And when it's niyamagraha, you can be doing something without knowing why you're doing it. That's not good, according to the ancient teaching of Rupa Goswami. Then he says niyamagraha means you might just give it up altogether and not do it at all. And here he's specifically talking about your disciplined practice. He said if you do it without knowing why you're doing it, you might get bored. Just do it by rote and be inattentive, and then you won't get a taste, and then you'll give it up. So he said, don't do it just for the sake of doing it, and also don't give it up. So what's the only choice left, JM? You have to do it with purpose. You
Purpose.
have to ask why, right?
Yeah. You have to do it with purpose. Yes.
Yeah. So this question, this is a deeper question. It goes uh, it goes to our core, and it can realign our life. Okay, let's take some reflections. We already have one on the board, and we'll have some conversation. Charles is here, so we're sure we're going to get some good stuff. Okay, go ahead, JM. What do we
Yeah.
have?
Marilia is back after some time of
Yay,
lapse.
fantastic. Welcome back.
And she says, "Thank you for having me. I need to drop for a meeting. I've missed you dearly. See you on the next week's session."
Okay. If anybody else is dropping, tell us where you're going. We'll go with you.
I've missed you so very much. And I'm so glad that I got an opportunity to get on this call today. It's always such a wonderful subject, and it always fills my heart. And I always look forward to getting the next invite so that I could definitely get on.
Thanks, Marilia.
Thank you so
Just
much. I'm in
made my
Arizona.
life worth living.
Oh, you're the best. I'm in Arizona still, 3 years now, but my goal is to move back to Northern California by spring next year. So hopefully I could go to one of those in-person sessions.
Yes, that would be great. And spring's a good time to move.
Yes.
Everything looks great.
Yes, it does.
Fantastic. Oh, we're so glad to see you, and
Thank
looking
you.
forward to having you out here in the Bay Area, hopefully.
Thank you. It was going to be this spring, but then my daughter's car broke down, and now I'm having to use the money to buy her another one.
Well,
So, sometimes a detour is thrown in there for a reason. So next year's it.
we'll keep the light on for you out here.
Thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate it. Big
All
air
right.
hugs.
Okay. Hugs.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Marilia.
Thank you.
And yeah, go ahead, Shubhanga.
Thank you. So, thank you, Prabhuji, for your your guidance on focus, staying in our lane, and executing on top of planning. What I've come to realize is there is so much to do just to stay in my lane, and so less time. And like you said, the filter is a very strong filter. I really have to let only very less things to pass through to stay in my lane, to be focused, and to be anchored onto what is absolutely necessary. But the whole world is actually not like that. Given this, what I've come to realize is I need to be alone, but loneliness eats me up from within. So, how do I learn to be alone and not feel lonely so that I can be anchored within and focus and stay in my lane?
Such great questions. What I notice about the conundrum of getting focus in a situation where even my lane is so crowded that it's seemingly oppressive is that my morning meditation practice is my only remedy. And what I mean by that is from my mantra meditation that I do early in the morning, I can't do without it to be able to sort out what's most important. Because if I do it on an intellectual level and I'm considering, okay, what's most important financially, what's most important for my health and my relationships, go down all the categories. Each one of them seems pressing, and everyone else who I work with has their priorities, and I want to work with them. So I have to have a higher standard for myself. And I can only get that by being very introspective to start the day. And so in the practice of mantra meditation that I do, I learned many years ago, I find that I'm able to realize very directly what my main priorities are. I get my clarity from the chanting and the experience, direct experience of feeling whole. So I could just describe that as a sense of really being in the moment and having a overwhelming sense of appreciation. This morning I was in my garden where I like to chant because it's a idyllic there. And I was chanting and everything's breaking out in flowers here. And I was just contemplating what is beauty. If somebody was to ask me, why do you think that's beautiful? I would just say, I just do. And I was thinking the aesthetic of beauty is something that you don't really intellectualize. You feel it in your solar plexus. You just go, that is beautiful. How is it beautiful? And I notice when my wife and I go up into way northern California for a retreat, when we're walking through a place that is so beautiful. We see scenes all the time. He's like, did you see that? Did you see that? And I think, let's just stop doing that and just appreciate it, because it's really hard to articulate what beauty is. And so the direct experience is what I'm getting at, of the beauty of your own self, that you don't have to become something, you already are something. It's the place to start every day, is experiencing that life itself is exhilarating. And the universe is so complete. I used to have this experience when I was a kid, and I started dabbling in spirituality. I would sit for a long time in the backyard, my parents' backyard, and I would just notice how everything was electrified. It's sort of like, icing the body electric. That you notice there's this current running through nature even. Walden Pond? Have you ever read any Thoreau or Emerson? They both went off the grid to experience their connection with nature. And they reported that this is fulfilling. So there has to be, in my experience for myself, I have to have that direct experience. It's called pratyaksha. Pratyaksha vagamam dharmyam. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, you have to have this direct experience for yourself where you're overwhelmed with a sense of appreciation. It's not an intellectual adjustment. You just go, that's beautiful and it's amazing. And from the chanting and the meditation, I get that. And when I do, then the way I deal with my life situation is adjusted. I feel a natural sense of detachment, and I also carry with me a modicum of knowledge. And this is what's mentioned in the wisdom literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. It says, when you practice and you have that direct experience, then there are concomitants that you get to take with you. They're called Gyan and Vairagya. So Gyan means knowledge. There's a knowingness that I'm not this body, that I'm in a time-driven universe, but it's not my universe. I'm just part of it. I'm just observing it. And detachment goes along with that non-attachment to those things that are superfluous, and everything's superfluous when you realize that I'm just a non-material particle in a material world. Hope that wasn't too convoluted, but my main point is the experience has to be. See, I knew Charles was going to rally at some point. Okay, Charles, go ahead.
Thank you, Francisco Prabhu. And yeah, such great questions I'm hearing here as well. So happy to be a part of this. I had to dig deep for this because, to be honest, I didn't really have a question, but I didn't want to let you down. So, uh, but yeah, one thing I've been thinking about, I think it relates to what you're talking about here. So let's say situation where your mind keeps going back to maybe like a relationship you had with someone. So there's some sort of desire there to um, rectify that relationship or bring closure to it because you didn't think you had that closure. And I think this could be in a family context. This could be in a friendship context. This could also be in an intimate or relationship context as well. But like you said, I think in your like intellectually, that, okay, these are kind of just thoughts that keep coming up. I should stay focused. I should stay in my lane, do the things I need to do. But in your heart, it doesn't feel like there's closure there. Like you want to do something about it. Or you'd want there to be closure, but maybe you can't because of, the independence of that person, right? It takes sort of two to sort of fix a relationship, right? Like maybe you just don't have access to that person anymore. They're not willing to fix things. How would you say to deal with that? Is it best to just, say, those are my thoughts, that's not me, and just over time those things kind of just go away? Or is there a practice we can sort of put in place to better deal with these sort of recurring thoughts of desires of things we want but necessarily can't do anything about in the world, but we know are disturbing our minds? Thank you, and Hare Krishna.
It's just like you, Charles, to say you don't have anything, then to come out with a jewel like that. Fantastic. What a great question. I think we can all relate. Well, here's two very practical ways that I've learned to deal with that. Number one, well, I'll just start with saying there's lots of things banging around in my mind all the time. And I'm sure that's the ubiquitous experience everyone has. I always have something to write on. In fact, I was categorizing the things I write on every day. I have this, which is the major notebook. Then I always have in my pocket, so I never lose it. I don't leave my room without this, my little book to write things down. And then I have the big one. I'm not going to show you all the stuff I have. But I'm starting there by saying when there's something in my mind that's floating around, I make sure I have a place for it to land. Because what I've found is once I take it out of my head and I put it on paper and I articulate it as clearly as possible so I can thank myself later that I was very clear and didn't just scribble it and I can't figure it out, then it gives me a sense of peace. Now, how does that relate to your question about a deficiency or an unclosed issue with somebody? Well, one thing I found by accident was if I write a letter to that person and put everything I'm thinking about the relationship, what bugs me, what went wrong, what my deficiencies were in it, and the whole thing, I don't have to send it. But if I write it all out, I get it off my mind and out of my heart, and I put it down on paper, there's a kind of peace that I considered it and it landed somewhere. In the future, if you talk to the person, you've already thought about it really clearly and you have all the points, so they're not random. And the benefit of that is that you kind of come to closure. Now, the last point, the last step in that is something from accounting. Uh, I studied accounting for a little while and I found these really interesting principles. Uh, One of them is about writing off bad debts. As it happens, when the chapter we talked about collections in accounting, there was this law called the law of diminishing intent, which means there was an equation for accountants. The longer you wait to collect a debt, the less likely you're going to get it because people lose their intent to give it back to you. Therefore, and I've seen this in modern days in practice, that expert accountants, they come to they make a decision about a debt, a bad debt, and they'll just say, we're writing it off. And they go to the board of directors and they say, look here's this chunk right here. You're never going to get it. Can we take it off the books? And you're thinking like, yeah, but that's like $40,000 or whatever. And then you go like, we're never going to get it. And you just take it off. And the accountant, in one little click on the board, it's gone. And then it's finished. So those two things, get it out of your head, get it out of your heart, write it down and be really clear. Write a letter to the person. You don't send it generally, but at least you took it out of your head. And second of all, you have a little board meeting with yourself and you say, are we going to write this off? And you go like, yeah, let's write it off. Let's just get it off the books. And you go, boom, and it's gone. And then you move on. And how can you do that? You write it off to karma because it's the easiest thing for people who believe in the continuum. The philosophy of the continuum. This isn't our only life. We've been in other lives, and if it's somebody wronged us, Yeah, I'm sure I wronged somebody else, and I'm getting a little taste of my own medicine. If you take it as a lesson and you just say that they were the instrument of my karma, so it's good for me. And now we're even, and you leave it at that, you can move on, free as a butterfly. Those are a
And
few thoughts, Charles. Thanks for the question.
oh, that was incredible. Very practical. And it reminds me of the idea that like we're free to experience and achieve freedom in any moment. Like the choice is ours, right? I can take that action to, write it down or to let that thought go, right? And free myself in that moment. So thank you. I appreciate
Yeah, I
that.
love that, Charles. Where are you, by the way? Some interesting architecture behind you there.
Yeah, I'm actually just at home. This is my parents' home in New Jersey, so I'm spending time with them.
Wow.
Um, yeah, hopefully I'll be out in the Bay Area soon so I can see you.
Is it chilly out there?
It was a little bit when I walked out, so I brought this little sweater just for comfort. But yeah, I spend a lot of time inside, the remote work and all of that. So I like to get out a little
Yeah.
bit at least. It reminds me I'm alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Good to get the light out there.
yeah, exactly.
Well,
Oh,
great to
thank you
see
so
you,
much.
Charles. Thanks a lot.
Likewise.
We'll be counting the
Yeah,
days till we see you out here.
likewise.
If we
Okay.
have time, I had one follow-up on it. Um, do we
Nurali, go
have
ahead.
time? Okay.
Yes.
So one thing is like, right, the other person is not wanting closure, but sometimes people are bullying. When you take it out, out of your heart and you try to be normal, they still bully you, thinking you keep forgiving them. And they try to harm, right? And sometimes I'm not sure what to do to protect, not without getting angry. But I get anxious talking to those kind of bully people, and I understand that they try to take advantage, right? Knowing that I'm a soft-hearted or, you know, won't retaliate. So
Yeah. That's definitely one of the miseries of life listed in
yeah,
the ancient wisdom literatures is,
beating me up.
yeah, well, I'll just say how I deal with it, and that is I find those who are colleagues of mine who have common experiences, especially if it's related to the same person, and try to get some solace. And I'll say, is it me or is it that person? And oftentimes people will say, hey, look, that guy does that to everybody. Don't
Yeah.
take it personally. And that's another point about not taking things personally that's in that book I've recommended before called The Four Agreements.
Mhm.
It talks about don't take things personally. That's a practice because oftentimes that's what makes it hurt is we take it personally. And if you don't, and you just let it roll off and practice doing that, then you'll notice that the sting is gone. Now, just the last thing I want to say about it, if somebody's doing something harsh to you and it's even uh, violent, then it's good to do due diligence to make sure that they don't hurt you. It's not that spirituality means just suffer and don't take proper action. You should take proper action. Do your due diligence if somebody's doing something that they shouldn't be doing to you so that you're not hurt by it. But at the same time, I like to say do it methodically and dispassionately, but do take care of it. Thanks, Nirali. Okay,
Yeah.
Manu.
I had a question about the morning practices. Like, say sometimes we due to some prior commitments or some other priorities, we might miss our morning practice doing in the early hours. So, how to have the same momentum when we do it during the day, or any
Yeah,
advice on?
that's altogether possible. It's good to set the environment. Something about the morning sets the environment for us because that peaceful time when the sun's coming up is ideal. But it's not that we can't do it at any time and place, but it might just take a little more organizing. So, what I like to do is let everybody know that I'm not available for a little time. That helps in and of itself to get into that introspective mode because one of the things that builds anxiety is We think somebody's going to call us or that somebody's expecting us to call them. And if we can put up a notice, for instance, if you're in a household where everyone's expecting you, and just say, I need the next 5 minutes or 50 minutes or whatever you can afford to just be totally unavailable so you can take that time. And then you find a place that's conducive for you. You can definitely do it at those other times, but it takes arrangement. Like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about meditation and says you should find a proper space and try to find a good seat and be comfortable and then spend the time to get into that mode of introspection. So get a do not disturb sign. I have them all over the place. I bring them with me when I travel too. So I just know nobody's going to break in on the time that I need, because you need a little time to yourself to be able to get into that awareness of who you really are and experience that Satchidananda nature that you have naturally within you. Okay, and then Sundar's been trying for a little while here. Good to see you, Sundar.
Thank you. Good to see you also, Maharaj. So I think I had very similar question to what Nirali asked, and then I think kind of addressed my the my question there, which is to basically take proper action and but do it methodically and dispassionately. So
Yeah, another thing about these vexing situations that we all get into, because when you're dealing with humans, you're going to be vexed at some point, is use what I call applied procrastination. I know how to procrastinate. I've done it for a long time. Especially with writing, it's like, oh, it's so hard to get into that zone. Once I'm there, I don't want to come out. But then the mind, in that book called The War of Art, the author talks about, resistance. It's really hard to overcome. So applied procrastination means we know how to put things off. And so if that emotion comes up that's bugging you about some situation from before, just procrastinate it. I call it TLN, tender loving neglect. Just say, like, yeah, I know you're there, but I'm not going to deal with it. And there's something about the time factor that erodes everything, including these emotions. And if you just keep putting it off, like we were used to putting off important things, and you put off the things that are bugging you, after a while, they just diminish. They fall apart. And he's like, what happened to that? Remember that thing? It's like, oh, that? Yeah, that was so long ago. And the person changes and the situation, the planet changes. Everything's different. So if you apply that principle, oftentimes it's called tolerance. And Prabhupada, my teacher, talks about this. He says, sometimes in situations that are so onerous, like if you lose a loved one, all you can do is tolerate. Just tolerate it, because you have to heal with time. It's not like you can fix it right away. You have to go through the grieving process and just live with it. Don't try to fix everything. Just let it go.
okay.
Well, JM,
So if
what
I
do we
may,
have
just
here?
a
What are we
point.
looking at? Huh? Oh,
Just
sorry, Sundar, go ahead. You got
just a
more.
point, just to conclude the discussion on this particular topic. So it's what you're saying, if I understand correctly, is a balance between tolerance and the proper action. Is that how we should understand it as?
Yeah, and it doesn't mean not to take action. So that's that other mantra, which is be methodical, do everything you have to do, just like troubleshooting. I love it because you don't have to be a genius. You just have to take little steps to fix something. It's like, well, I can do that and I can do this. It's just when we get overwhelmed by the whole process of things, how am I going to get this thing to work? It's like, don't try to do that. Just try to do what you can right now. And so that's being methodical. Do what you can in the moment. What's your next smallest step that you can take? And and that's from that book, Get Things Done. Is that what it's called? Getting Things Done?
I think
Yeah,
so.
he talks about that. Don't try to do the whole thing or the third thing, or try to do the smallest next thing that you can do. That's what stops us oftentimes. So in that, do what you can do with what you have, but be dispassionate about it. So you're tolerant, but you're acting at the same time. That's Bhagavad Gita.
Mm.
It's detached action. That's nectar. You can move in the world without and do everything expertly. Show up for it, be there, put on your best, outfit, whatever you're going to do, but stay detached and do your own work internally so that it's real. So you have to taste something sublime that's higher than all your problems because that's the only refuge. It has to be real. You can't do it intellectually or theoretically. It has to come from your sense of feeling whole. And so there's no substitute for the hard work of like the inner work that you do. And our friend David Cresswell, who teaches mindfulness meditation at Carnegie Mellon, he talks about this a lot about if people think meditation or introspection, so it's like, well, it's just bliss and easy. No, he said, it's really hard. And you have to be willing to work with benign discomfort to have, if you can get even one little experience of sublimity, you're a wealthy person because most people don't get it their whole lives. They're just surfing in the external world of all these world situations trying to stimulate their senses and they never get any complete satisfaction. But in one moment, if you have an experience for yourself, cognition. In fact, there's a verse I've been looking at from this ancient scripture called the Brahma Samhita. I keep it right here on my desk, written in Sanskrit. And it's got this beautiful verse I just learned a while back. Prabhude Jnana Bhaktivan Atmayananda Chinmai Udit Tama Bhaktir Bhagavat Prema Lakshana. So it starts with the word Prabhude, which means to excite something. Jnana Bhaktivyam, it says by cognition and by service. These two things. Get knowledge that awakens your intellect to the higher purpose of life, and then do some service in bhakti. Then Prabhude Jnana Bhaktivyam Atmayananda Chinmay, you can experience your own nature. Atmayananda Chin Udeti, and then something awakens in you that's special. Udeti Nattama Bhaktir, which is called bhakti. That's the way we call bhakti yoga. And it's this sense of intense gratitude and devotion to the Supreme. And when you get that experience, then you can deal with the world dispassionately but methodically.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you,
Thank you,
Sundar.
Is it okay to take one more question?
If it's okay with everybody else, I hope I'm not keeping it. Everyone's on a tight schedule here. Okay, I'll answer it in 60 seconds or less.
The question is from Ariana, who asks, "What does your meditation in the morning look like?"
Well, I have these beads. These are meditation beads. There's 108 beads on here. And I start by when I get up in the morning, I'll do a few things like I'll do ablutions. I'll drink some hot water. I take a little electrolyte. Just make sure my body's balanced. And I always get up way before the sun. And then I'll sit down for the first several rounds and I chant the mantra just loud enough so that I can hear it. And then I meditate on the sound and I bring my mind into the mantra. So it's enveloped by the mantra and it's not going anywhere else. And then uh, after I've sat for some time, I'll get up and pace a little bit and I'll chant and I keep doing it. And then I'll even go for a walk sometimes. And I like, especially when the sun's just coming up, so I can get a good vantage point, so I can get the sun in my face. And then I keep the mantra going that whole time. And that's kind of what it looks like externally, a guy sitting there and then walking around a little bit and then walking for a longer walk. That's my normal pattern for my morning chanting. And I base my schedule around that just so that I can make sure that I have that in there before any calls start early in the morning or anything like that. JM, you know, I'm thinking of those yogis in the Himalayas who have this conundrum. They want to talk to their fellow yogis, but they got to go back to their cave to meditate. I'm kind of feeling like that right now. We're all feeling like that, I hope. And they say this phrase, Hari Bol, to encourage one another means let's keep this conversation going. So to depart, maybe we can do that. I'm going to try it. Haribo.
Haribo!
Thanks,
Ball.
everybody. Great having you. Fantastic questions, and look forward to seeing you very soon.